Welcome to Game Crunch, your weekly video game podcast. My name is Mike Anastasia. With me, we got Brandon,
Hello.
and we are here to talk about games and things.
Games and things.
It's on the agenda today. New things, Persona 3. That
Mm-hmm.
remake is out. That's
It is.
exciting. I played the Mario vs. Donkey Kong demo. That's
Mm-hmm.
new and exciting. And then we got some other games.
I'll
Oh, and
probably
Microsoft
play
is going third party
Rebirth.
again.
Yeah, well, yeah, that again.
Again. I mean, they were there before, and now
Mm-hmm.
they are there again. But I guess they never left there
They're just making it
either.
official.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. We'll revisit that once we get there. So,
Yeah.
there was you ready to get started?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I'll go first just because I feel like I haven't played too much the last couple weeks, so it's been a while since I think I've given you a break from starting things right off.
That sounds
So,
good.
yeah, so I played Mario vs. Donkey Kong. The full game's not out yet, but they did put out a demo this week. So I played through that. I played through the whole demo. It was honestly one of the weakest demos I've played in a long time.
Damn.
Not because the game is bad, but because it was very like a bare bones demo. They gave you 4 levels. If you ever played Mario vs. Donkey Kong before, those
Mm-hmm.
stages take about 30 seconds to get through. So this
Nice.
demo was less than 5 minutes long to get through like everything.
Awesome.
Yeah. What can I tell you about it? Well, it's Mario vs. Donkey Kong, like you remember from the Game Boy Advance. It looks really nice. It plays well, and at least from what they have there, nothing terribly exciting. Demo wise, they do let you play, and I did not obviously, but they do let you play like a 2-player mode, which is new to this version of the game. As part of the demo, if you want to, you can play through with 2 people. Like I said, the stages they let you play are the most boring in existence. So I can't imagine you'll be like, oh my god, this is great with 2 players because now I have even less to do. But should you choose, that option is there. So there's that. Honestly, not terribly much to say about this just because demo is just so short. But
Mm-hmm.
like I said, it looks good, it plays good. It comes out 2 weeks, I believe,
Oh, okay.
is the official release date. Like I said, it plays really well. I'm happy with what's here. I just wish I got to play more of it. They did say there's more new stages and things, so look forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's really all I have to say about it. There really is not too much here. So, but it is new and exciting. So there's that. If you want, try out the demo. Like I said, not terribly exciting, but it is free and it is on the eShop. So we got that. And also, surprisingly, too, this is, I think, the first demo in a long time that Nintendo is not like, hey, start the game and carry over your progress. I'm like, nope. They're just it's just like, here's 4 random stages. Play them if you want.
You carry over the first
So,
5 minutes of gameplay, I guess.
yeah, well, I mean, you get to watch the intro cutscene, I guess. So, yes, I guess that saves you time because you won't have to, maybe you can skip it next time and not feel guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But there's that. I did really enjoy Mario vs. Donkey Kong on the Game Boy Advance when it came out last time. So I am looking forward to this. So this should be fun. But
It's awesome.
yeah. Other thing, I pretty much finished the first game in the another Code Recollection. The only reason I said pretty much is because I am at the end of the game. Fact. But then I got frustrated with something, and I'm not being vague just because like I'm not trying to spoil something. I'm just being vague because I'm really not sure what frustrated me. So I stopped. That's kind of where I left it. This was last night, so it's not like it was like a very prolonged thing. I'm sure it's kind of, how with like adventure games, like this, where you have like some weird context thing. It's like, I know what I need to be doing. I just don't know what the game needs me to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what's going on right now. I'm like, I know I'm in the right place. I know I have all the right things that I need. I know I'm not missing any like items or like story beats that are limiting me from progressing the game. It just wants something very specific, and I don't know what, and the game's not really giving me feedback to tell me. So I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm done with this for now. So That's where I left it. I mean, I could have probably easily Googled it and I'd be like, oh yeah, you just gotta do this instead of that, and I'd be like, oh okay, that's dumb. But um, but yeah, I mean, otherwise the game I've been enjoying it pretty well. It's pretty straightforward. Not really. Trace Memory was not a adventure game that was very obtuse. Like things were pretty easily spelled out for you in a lot of different ways. Um, Puzzles weren't super hard to solve, although they do have some clever ones in there. And I think that some of that may have been made even slightly more clever because you don't have the two screens anymore. It's not the touchscreen DS anymore. You're now playing on the Switch, so they did have to kind of change some things up a little bit. But story-wise, it was about as I remembered it, and as I started to get through, I'm like, I think this is what happens, and it is. It is what happened. I did remember it pretty well. It's not like it's a twist that you won't necessarily see coming. You might not. I feel like it's a good twist. It has a good, reasonable twist to it. But then it also has kind of some like dumb just kind of story stuff there too. So but it's overall it's fun. I think, like I said, I think it's pretty clever and that I'm literally looking forward to starting the second game. Which should be, I don't know, it should be this week since I finished up the first game, except for whatever this last stupid puzzle is. But no, it works really well. And again, it just kind of really makes me hope that, hey, maybe if they had enough thought to publish a compilation of another code, maybe they'll do it for Hotel Dusk as well. So
Okay.
yeah. I think that's it. I think that's all my excitement too. I've been playing more Vampire Survivors, but I think I talked a lot about the new stuff last week, so
Yep.
I don't think I have any updates on that side of things. Any questions on those games?
No, not really. They kind of look like games to me, and they're not really something I'm super interested in.
Me either. When I'm playing them. So.
When it comes to Vampire Survivors, I play that game. I already know what I'm getting into there. But like the other ones you were talking about, like Mario and Donkey Kong, I never cared about that series. And then the Recode, whatever the fuck it was called, that just doesn't really interest me that much.
I like adventure games. I like a good story.
I do too. I don't know. It's more. I wouldn't say it's as much an adventure game as it is like it's an adventure game in the same way like Myst is an adventure game, which feels more like a point and click, but you get to do the inputs and that sort of thing when solving the puzzles and that sort of deal. It feels more like that, at least from everything I've seen. Not really like full on an adventure game, just like a exploration puzzle solving game, more or less. I don't know. It's close to a point and click, but not. That's what it seems like to me. Am I at least somewhat right in that assumption?
Yeah, it's closer to point and click. I think at least it's kind of the way that I like differentiate genres is, like an adventure game is at least this is how I feel like a lot of places use these terms. Like if you're going to use the term just adventure without the action part, that's literally what it's just like the.
Yeah, but then some people can say like, oh, well, Zelda is an adventure game, but there's like some form of action there. There's like some form of like combat.
Usually, you'll see Zelda would be referred to as like action adventure because it's kind of like both. And that seems to kind of, it's kind of, it's, I don't know, it's like weird because it'll be like adventure, and then they'll be like, oh, these are the, the point and click games and the walking simulators and, stuff, games that have gameplay without action, but you're doing things. They're like, it's adventure. And then they'll be like, well, if you got action and you're exploring, well, now it's action adventure. And then if you just have action without the exploring, then it's just an action game. I don't know. That's how I see it broken down a lot of times. Whether or not that's the right usage of those, don't know. But that's usually how it kind of like I would break it down. But yeah, you're right. That's definitely more what they are. More kind of closer to like walking simulator Myst type games as opposed to something say like Zelda. Yeah, because you have like another code basically, at least the first game, gives you kind of like, here's the map of a mansion, and go around and explore, and then you find keys and you unlock more doors, and then You can kind of go in and solve some puzzles in that room, and that's going to give you kind of a general idea of where to go in the next direction. And then every once in a while, there's story bits that are spread out in between. So it all kind of works out well. It's interesting, I guess. Maybe it's probably a better way to put it. Then it has a highs and lows like any game, but I think overall, it's pretty solid.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Story can be a little funky, but I mean it's a video game. I've seen some pretty funky stories. Overall, this one, it's I don't know, it's weird because it'll be like grounded in reality, and then it'll be like, this is kind of far fetched, and it goes far fetched in like paranormal, and then it goes far fetched in like sci-fi. So it all kind of depends on what moment of the game you're in. So it can vary. It's almost honestly the story almost feels like they took two stories and they're like, we really don't know what to do, and they're like, and then it's like that girl from that commercial is like, why not both? And they're like, yeah, great idea. And so then they just stitch both stories together and they work, but it's just kind of a little bit back and forth there. So and Mario versus Donkey Kong. Did you ever play Donkey Kong 95?
Yeah, like the original one that was in arcades, that sort of thing.
No.
Wait, okay, hold on. I thought you were saying 85. Is
No,
it 85? 80,
95.
Okay, 95. What is 95?
So Donkey Kong 95 was the Game Boy / Super Game Boy Donkey Kong that they put out on the Game Boy. So it starts out as like the first few stages, like I think the first 4 stages are kind of like classic Donkey Kong. If I remember the way it works, you play through each of the regular Donkey Kong stages, but then at the end, Donkey Kong, instead of like capturing him, he like escapes, and then you're following him like across all these different areas, and so it has like multiple stages. So that plays a lot like Mario versus Donkey Kong. I think that's kind of like the basis they had for it, where they take that kind of classic Donkey Kong platforming, make it a little bit more Mario-esque, and then they have you like doing challenges in the level. So there's always like some collectible stuff to do. Your goal is to basically get a key, follow Donkey Kong through a door. But there's kind of like a lot of different like machinery or enemies and stuff that kind of try to keep you out of the way. Donkey Kong 95 is excellent. It's a great game if you like those classic Game Boy games. I don't remember if it's on NSO, on the like virtual console. It might be. I know it has been in the virtual console in the past, so it may be. I don't remember. I just don't remember if it's one of the Game Boy games that's available now or not. But if it is, it's a lot of fun. If it's not, then if you want something similar, this might be a fun game to try out. But I agree, definitely not for everyone. It's not. It doesn't even play like, it's a platforming game like Mario is, but it's not as fluid or forgiving. It's definitely more difficult generally, although you probably would not notice that from the demo, because they really serve you up probably the easiest levels possible. But it is a lot of fun. So I don't know. I'm sure I'll talk about it again in a couple weeks to be able to give you an update with where it is. But if you haven't played Donkey Kong 95, that is excellent. So, but classic Donkey Kong sucks. So
it's fine if you're in an arcade, but like
if you're fine if you're in an arcade, anywhere else it's not. So
yeah, no, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Like there's no real point to it otherwise, but it is definitely a good arcade like score-based game, but not nowhere else. Like that's my main point.
Oh yeah.
And that's also kind of the reason why I feel the way I do about like the mini series. The mini series feels like an arcade game, not something I should be paying $40 or $60 for. That's my main.
So this one is. So this is not a minis game.
Okay.
So
it looks like it though, right?
It looks like it. So this is the game that spun off the minis.
Okay.
So the minis spun off of this game. So the minis is more like, I know this is what you asked for, but I'm just telling you, just because for the listeners. So the Mario and minis or whatever, I don't even remember what the fuck those subtitles were.
March and the Minis. That's the one I remember. That's the only one I remember.
So those were more like Lemming style puzzle games.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. This one is more like Donkey Kong style platforming. So you're
Okay.
playing as Mario specifically, not like the other ones where you're like directing the minis along and just being like, oh, let me move this platform so you can get through. This is more like I need to platform up this elevator, dodge this shy guy, pick up this key, platform up a different way to the door, avoid these
Hmm.
barrels, and then, get through or whatever. It's kind of more like that kind of thing, as opposed to like, I'm just going to walk in a straight line and I'm going to die unless you do something. So, yeah, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. I
Yeah,
understand what you're saying.
yeah. The minis games are fun too, but definitely different from this. So, um, I just figured it's probably a good thing to point out because you are right because it did spin off of this, so it looks very much like it, and the minis are a feature of this game,
Hmm.
because that is kind of what basically the story of this game is. Donkey Kong decides he wants these mini Mario toys and goes to get them, and then they're sold out, so he gets pissed off and then takes over Mario's toy factory. So, just in case you were wondering of the deep story that lies underneath this game.
Hmm.
That's what it is.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, no, it's fun. Like I said, it comes out next week, so we won't have an update next week because it won't come out till the end of the week. But sometime later in this month, we will. So I will tell you more once I've played more. But that's it. That's all I got exciting wise. Nothing else.
Okay.
You ready to talk
Well,
about your things?
yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to talk about the two games I had already mentioned before, and then
Yeah.
go into the new one. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So first things first, I played a decent chunk more of Infinite Wealth. I'm about 65 hours into it now.
Uh-huh.
This game is shaping up to be my favorite game in the entire Yakuza series, easily. I will tell you this right now, Mike. I spent 12 hours on one side quest,
Mm-hmm.
and that one side quest was Animal Crossing.
Okay.
So there is a side quest where you get brought to an island. This island is being assaulted by pirates that's using the island as a dumping ground for their trash and everything. And it's
Mm-hmm.
brought down the island to a 0-star resort.
Okay.
Your mission is to rebuild the island from scratch and refurnish it with buildings and things to do for like a community, and then bring people in and sell them that island until you're able to make your island a 5-star resort.
Okay. That's
And it
cool.
acts kind of like on the way that Animal Crossing would. This entire thing is like one massive side quest, and I played through the entire thing in like 3 days. It was
Mm-hmm.
so much fun. It was so enjoyable. It had like its own characters, its own story, its own lore and everything, and it was excellent. It was honestly fantastic and so good that it could have been a game in its own right. Like it could have been its own game instead of just a mini side quest in this game. So yeah, fan fucking tastic. I loved every moment of that. I also did more Sujimon things, which Sujimon is the Pokemon in like a Dragon Infinite Wealth.
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing through more of the story, which I really don't want to spoil in the story because it's fucking excellent. It's been really enjoyable from start to finish. Um, I have not finished it obviously yet, but like I'm 65 hours in. I've run a decent amount of the game now, and it's been a joy to play this game. It's so fun. I like play a little bit of it every night, and it's been just really enjoyable. So yeah,
Good.
and then I sat down and played Tekken 8. And
Mm-hmm.
as I've mentioned before, Tekken is one of my favorite fighting games. And
Yeah.
this one is so polished, so good, so enjoyable, and it has all the fantastic things that we need for a modern game, such as cross-platform play, to keep the game going for a long period of time by drawing from the player pool from every single thing that this game is on. And it's got, like I mentioned before, the arcade mode, which now that I've played it like extensively and seen a lot of it, the arcade mode acts sort of as like a tutorial to get you into the game, teaching you different mechanics and different things about the game as you're going through. But it's also its like own story mode that's like maybe I want to say like 3-4 hours long, but it's still a decent chunk of content. for a tutorial, and it doesn't feel like a tutorial. It feels like you're learning the game naturally while going through it. So that's like super cool the way they were able to introduce that. And then when you finish the arcade mode, it's like, hey, there's another arcade that opened up. We should go check it out. And the other arcade is introducing you into online play because they use the same arcade system where like you have an avatar and you go from arcade to arcade fighting people, but now you're doing it to real people in the actual online multiplayer. And I thought that was a really cool way to like move into that at the end of the whole thing. And you got little cosmetics for your avatar as you went through the entire arcade mode. And it's just neat. It's very enjoyable. It did end by going to fucking Evo and having the trophy presented to you by Harada, the creator of Tekken himself. And
Hmm.
then you can even go on to fight the creator of Tekken and try to beat him at his own game. It's very silly. It's very neat. It's just fun. It's a very interesting way of making a tutorial that doesn't feel like a tutorial and teaches you the gameplay every step of the way while still feeling like engaging. So really like that. And it's also enjoyable. Tekken 8 and like Dragon Infinite Wealth have been just fantastic so far. So
Okay.
really enjoying my time with both of those. Um, Persona 3 Rebirth, I believe that's the title, the subtitle. Uh, this game is my favorite Persona in the entire series,
Hmm.
and pretty much aside from some songs being changed around, but still being the same song, but just different lyrics and different samples because they didn't have the rights to the samples they used before. This game is exactly what I wanted. It's a modern, like, graphical styled version of Persona 3, and it's excellent. It's so fun. It's really enjoyable. It does with like with Tane, it does keep all those elements that made it feel like an older game. So random generated dungeons, which that's always been a part of the game,
Hmm.
um, as well as uh, very, very, very long cutscenes and explanations getting you into the game. I'd say it takes you like 2 hours to start playing this game. Like to actually start playing this game, it takes you 2 hours to get to that point, which is
Makes sense.
yeah, I mean, you're going to be spending hundreds of hours in this game. So like it makes sense to like take you a while to get there, but also it's an old PS2 game. And those games really took their time when it came to RPGs basically to get like
Hmm.
started. And it still feels like the game I love. It just looks really good now. It's got a lot of quality of life improvements such as being able to control your entire party instead of having them act on their own. And I kind of love it. It's great. So, Persona 3, if you have Game Pass, you should definitely check it out. It's a lot like the Final Fantasy series where you can jump in any game and enjoy the game for what it is, and it's separate from 4, 5, any of the others. So you don't have to play 2 or 1 or anything like that. And even though 2 is the best Persona next to 3, but 3 is the best modern Persona in my opinion still.
Hmm.
Um, I won't hear everyone keep telling me, it's 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Shut the fuck up and play an actual game. No, go play Persona 3. It's awesome. It is my favorite. It's very, very enjoyable.
There's a rumor I saw today that apparently, um, Persona 2
Yeah,
is up on the remake block. Are you there?
yeah. Persona 2 would be, yeah, yeah. Persona 2 would be a great game to remake because it's a PS1 game and PSP already has a remake. I would not want a PSP remake, like a remake of the PSP one, where they just do what they did with Persona 3 initially, last year, because we also got a remake of Persona 3 last year, but it was P3P and it was the PSP version. I don't want that. Do something like this game with Persona 2, and it would be great.
Yeah. And I think I think one of the big complaints with the Persona 2, if I recall, and you can remind me if I'm not, um,
Hmm.
is that there's no good definitive version of that game. Like every release seems to miss something.
Yeah, I mean that's we talking about with Persona 2 or Persona 3?
Persona 2.
Okay, that's also a problem with Persona 3, and that's still a problem here, right?
Oh.
Because Persona 3 in P3P has another entire campaign with a different character that's the female version of the main character, which a lot of people really liked that version of the game, and you can
Mm-hmm.
only get that in P3P. You don't get that character period in Persona 3 Rebirth. But also there's multiple things in Persona 3 FES, and in FES they had multiple different extra storylines that you can play after you've finished the initial game, or if you want to just jump straight into them because you have a save file from the old Persona 3 version on PS2, you could do that as well. But they don't have that again in Persona 3 Rebirth, but some data miners found out that it's going to be resold as DLC, which kind of sucks because that just means they're doing what they did again.
Mm-hmm.
But they definitely did the same thing. I feel like they've done that with every release of Persona. Because if you look at Persona 4, you have the original Persona 4, and then you have Persona 4 Golden, which was just a better version of Persona 4. And then if you look at Persona 5, you have the original Persona 5, and you have Persona 5 Royale, and that's, again, just a better version of Persona 5. And then they did the same thing with 2, and I would say they've done the same thing with many of the Shin Megami Tensei games as well. I feel like it's just like they're the thing they do, more or less, which kind of fucks up everything. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe they'll release a definitive edition for Persona 3 a year later, like they like to do, which is dumb. Uh,
Yeah, I mean they definitely will. There'll be like a DLC or like a season pass or something that has the definitive version of Persona 3, and hopefully, I mean, no, I'm not even gonna say hopefully they don't do that because I already know they're going to. Sega wants you to double dip on Persona games. They always want you to, and I always end up doing so. So it's just gonna happen. It's just gonna keep happening because that's what every Persona fan does. They're like, damn, Persona 5 was good. Oh shit, Persona 5 Royal? Cool. Guess I'm buying that one also. Another $60. Here you go. Enjoy, which now would be another $70. Here you go. Enjoy, Sega. More of my money. Yeah.
yeah,
It's just gonna keep happening. And if they remake 2, it'll happen again.
I'm sure it will. And then it definitely will happen with Persona 6 whenever that gets up to reality. So, yeah, just never ending. But no, it's good. It is a game I do want to play, and I probably will play eventually. So, because I know you were talking about it's one of your favorites.
Uh-huh.
So, I'm not in any rush, but someday. I got too many other games that I'm like not excited for to play right now.
I mean, like I said, I'm still going through Infinite Wealth, and I'm probably gonna end up dropping another $40 to buy the season pass of Infinite Wealth
Hmm.
as well, because I mean, it's just that good. I don't give a fuck. It's just that good. We had that conversation, I believe, where we talked about, or maybe we haven't mentioned it. The problem with Infinite Wealth is there's like $100 edition,
Hmm.
or like maybe it might be even more expensive, but you have to pay for it to get New Game Plus,
Oh, it's
which
the
sucks.
dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It sucks. It sucks. It really does. But like I said, I'm going to get hundreds of hours out of this, and I will probably end up playing it again. So I'll probably wait when that goes on sale, and then or when the game goes on sale, and then I'll buy the season pass at a discount as well.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I'm probably going to not want to immediately turn around and play this game through again after putting over like hundreds of hours into it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Seems very reasonable.
I love
Yeah.
this game. I love Infinite Wealth. Infinite Wealth is already like one of my favorite games of this year. Actually, it's one of my favorite games of last year as well. So,
Yeah. No, it looks good. Honestly, I think it's maybe, for me as someone who has not played any of the Yakuza games,
mhm.
maybe one of the more compelling entries.
so
So,
so my thing is, and I told this to my other friend who wanted to play it. There are like 15 Yakuza games. That's something you need to keep in mind. Now, there's going to be some flashbacks to past games because there's two different characters that you play as in this game.
uh-huh.
But those flashbacks can kind of be explained, or kind of explained in the flashbacks, or at least you have the context clues for them.
Uh-huh.
Um, you don't necessarily have to play all of the games to get to this one, but you do have to play Like a Dragon,
Uh-huh.
which is the first RPG one, and
Hmm.
then The Man Who Erased His Name, which is the side story one that's only like 10 hours. So you do have to play both of those games and then go to Infinite Wealth if you want to if you want to get the whole story. Because there are a bunch of overlapping characters that have plot points that definitely transfer between the three of those games. And you would not know everything you need to know without having played the other two.
Okay, well, never mind that. I won't play.
That it's like a trilogy, basically. I don't know if they're going to do more after this, but it's definitely a trilogy where there's a lot of stuff here that you get from Yakuza 1 through 6. But that stuff doesn't really matter as much if you're a new player. But the stuff from Like a Dragon and from The Man Who Erased His Name definitely matter in the way that I think you'd be very confused by several of the characters that showed up. And even though it does explain them over time and that sort of thing, I don't really know if jumping straight into Infinite Wealth would be okay for anyone that's a complete newcomer. So that's my thing. My suggestion to you personally would be to try Like a Dragon, not Ishin, not Gaiden, but just Like a Dragon, which is on Game Pass. If you do make it through that one and you do enjoy those characters and you do enjoy that gameplay, see how you feel about Gaiden. And if you do finish that, then play Infinite Wealth because Infinite Wealth's the best one.
Okay.
So that's, and like I said, two of those are on Game Pass, so you don't have to pay for them, quote unquote, if you already have a subscription. So you can check them out that way, and it's not really a big ask, more or less.
Yeah.
And Like a Dragon, the first one, which has Ichiban in it, he was a completely brand new character with a completely brand new story. So his story was supposed to be like, okay, this is the new character. But then there was kind of some backlash, so people were like, all right, well, let's bring back the old character from all those other games, but let's just give him a completely new life that's explained in this game. And then this game was, let's have the new character and the old character in the same game, and we have little bits sprinkled in there for every person that's played all of the games up to now. And then we also have the overarching main plot line and story developed across the 3 games that we released since the new character came into this game. So going that way, it'd be a 3-game series. But going, if you wanted like the whole thing, or if you wanted to be like, anal about it, basically, I would just play any of them, like starting from 0, because I do think that 0, 2, and fuck, even the Judgment games are some of the best games. You could technically just play Judgment, which is its own thing entirely, but everything kind of has something that carries over at least a little bit. But when it comes to Like a Dragon, The Man Who Erased His Name, and then Infinite Wealth, they're all basically just one big series. Like they're one game from start to finish, more or less. So you can't really get the whole picture without playing those 3 games.
Okay.
But you don't have to pay for 2 of them.
So that's
So,
good. Guess you got that.
and since, I mean, as long as you have Game Pass, like we talked about. But here's the other thing. In 6 months, supposedly Infinite Wealth is also going to be on Game Pass. So if you wanted, you could just start Like a Dragon now and see how you feel about it and see if you want to continue playing these games. And by time you've finished the other game, if you like take your time, the Infinite Wealth will be on Game Pass, and then you don't have to pay anything for that one either. So,
all right, let's not be so optimistic.
What do you? Well, I mean, yeah, I'm being optimistic that you'll like one of my favorite series of all time. But
no, I don't think that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying the fact that you're like, oh, just you got time to play these 3 games in the next 6 months before this one becomes
no. The third game is the one you'd have to pay $70 for right now, but comes out in 6 months. You have time to play 2 games in the next 6 months before the third one comes to it for free.
Yeah, no, that's still a big ask. So, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I will get around to it. So, I guess depending on. I think my bigger issue right now is I'm not super drawn in by any games at the moment. Like nothing's really exciting me at this second. So I'm sure it will come, especially once the the hype stuff starts to come out. So we'll see. Next week could be a very different week. So
It's true. But like
mhm.
I said, you could just try it. Appease me, maybe.
Maybe someday. We'll see. We will see. I might. Um,
So the thing that gets me so much about like this series as a whole is um it feels real. Like almost a little too real at points. Like Infinite Wealth is about how like one guy's coming over to what he essentially thinks is his paradise, but then he finds out like, oh shit, this place is just as fucked up as all these other places, and I shouldn't like kind of idolize something and think this just because I'm looking at it from the other side, more or less. Like, oh, this place is going to be better. And that's also been kind of the thing that's gone on a lot in the other games. But they did that, and him coming to America is what Infinite Wealth is about. Um,
mhm,
the Like a Dragon series starts out kind of like talking about the homeless crisis and
mhm,
problems like that. And a lot of the actual content of these games is very realistic and very like relatable. And like there's some awful shit in here, but it makes the games feel so realistic when you're playing the main game. And then all the side quest shit is so fucking ridiculous that you can just have so much fun with it. And it's also the fact that you can just like walk into an arcade and just like
mhm,
sit down and play like full length arcade games and shit like that. The game feels like a living world. As opposed to many other like open world games like the GTA series, for instance. There's a lot of space in those games that feels just kind of worthless. And I think that also happens with the vast majority of Ubisoft games. And in these games, what they're able to do is actually make pretty much every square inch of the space that you have, even though it's not a big, huge, massively open world in all the Yakuza and Like a Dragon games, it is a world that feels like there's constantly something to do
mhm,
and constantly something happening. So it makes it feel more real than those other open world games that you would play, while still being a smaller world than those games as well. And it's kind of impressive how they're able to make everything from the characters to their actions to their like personalities to the world and seeing like things being built and changed throughout the game series and throughout you playing it all feel like it is alive, like it is an actual place that you could go to. And in some cases, it is an actual place that you can go to because it is modeled after multiple places in Japan. But it feels like a real place. It feels like an actual open world adventure game, more or less. And it
mhm.
feels like the characters all have personalities that make sense for their characters. And I really like that about the games because like you sit there and you like look at the writing in some games and Ubisoft and games and like stuff like that and you're like, what the fuck is this shit? But I feel like in this series as a whole, every character feels like, oh, okay, I get what they're going for here. I understand what they're going for, and it doesn't feel forced, and there's always something new and interesting about the character, and they're not one dimensional either. And I really like that about the series as a whole.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's why I'll always recommend it to anyone that wants to play something different.
I know you
Or
love
is like,
your
I
Yakuzas.
do, I do a lot. So there's that.
You know what I
And
love?
um Microsoft going third party for the 18th time.
Nah, I mean that was that's on the agenda of where I was gonna lead discussion.
I wasn't
Uh,
sure where we were going, so I tried to jump into one of the news topics.
no, it's good. I think it's the only one that's down there, right?
I
Or
think so.
yeah. No, I was just gonna throw. So, not that it's surprising this time of year because it always happens, but all the I was just gonna say, all the insiders are saying Nintendo Direct next week. That's what they're
Oh,
saying.
of course, of course.
Yeah, but it's kind of one of those things. It's where it's like, there's two things that are like very predictable with Nintendo Directs, and it's like the months, two of the month. You know, there's going to be a Nintendo Direct in February. Yeah, know there's going to be a Nintendo Direct in September. And if you are one of those insiders who's like vying for whatever stupid cred you can get, you got like a 25% chance you'll get it right on your first try if
Mhm.
you guess a week in February or a week in September. So, and if you're wrong, you can be like, oh, they must have just pushed it back by a week. You're bound to be right
Eventually.
eventually. So it is, and we are in that season now, and so now everyone's like, "Oh, Nintendo Direct next week," which, again, statistically speaking, there will be a Nintendo Direct this month. Nintendo pretty much always does one in February, and guess what? We are right in the middle of February now, so we made it through 1 week without a Nintendo Direct. So that means that we only got a couple more weeks left. So next week seems like a prime time to do it. So makes sense.
Mhm.
So we might be talking about that next week. It's very possible. But I mean, don't really. We've talked about all the things that we know that they probably will talk about. So I don't think there's much reason to recap it. We know we're going to talk about the reports that are coming
Mhm.
out. We know. Well, I think my prediction was that they will announce a Switch 2 announcement
Mhm.
at whatever this direct was. They'll say it's coming and they will give a date for when they're going to formally announce it, maybe, or at least allude that it will be coming in like a future direct. But that's it. Otherwise, Nintendo does have they're at a spot where they really kind of have to start shaping up the first half of their year. So that's what this is. We know that we had another um another Code Recollection last month. We have Mario versus Donkey Kong this month. We have that Princess Peach game next month. So we know those there. And then we know Luigi's Mansion 2 remake is coming sometime this summer. And we know that Paper Mario Thousand Year Door is coming sometime this year. Although more likely sooner than later, based on ESRB ratings.
Mhm.
So but I mean otherwise the rest of this year's open. So they gotta fill it with something. So odds are we may have an idea next week. But anyways, yeah, you're right. The hot news story of the week is Microsoft's going third party again. Maybe.
All right, let's
It,
let's just let's just talk about this because this is just so weird to me, right?
yeah. This is
Microsoft, for
kind
the
of an
most part,
update
has
from when we talked
always
about
been
this a couple
third
weeks ago.
party. And I guess this will lead to a discussion where it's like, we have our discussions where we like, oh, hey, let's have some weird fucking discussion real quick. So here's mine for this week. Um, were they ever not third party? And here's the other part to that question. A lot of people are like, oh, Microsoft has always been third party because of the fact that they release their games on the PC. And then my question is, okay, well then is Sony also third party?
Uh,
Because in case you didn't know, we've already, at least the leak, but we've already got some confirmed from said leak. Horizon Forbidden West, Until Dawn, God of War Ragnarok, Gran Turismo 7, Demon Souls remake, and Last of Us Part 2 all leaked for PC. Every single one of them. So they're not playable yet, obviously, but the data that the fact you'll be able to buy them and play them on PC before the end of 2025, all of them, has leaked. So my question is, if they're saying, well, Microsoft's always been third party because they just send their games to PC, with Sony sending every single one of their fucking games to PC now, aren't they just also third party? Isn't the only real exclusive first party gaming console the Nintendo Switch at
so
the end of the
this
day?
So I mean, it's a tricky question. It really kind of has to do with. I've always viewed like the party stuff as
Yeah.
being a console exclusive like term.
Same.
So
But a lot of people are now being like, because we just had that conversation where we were like, oh, well, console exclusive. Okay, well then we were wrong just now by saying that Microsoft was always third party because you couldn't buy Sea of Thieves on PlayStation 5 or Switch. You couldn't buy Hi-Fi Rush on PlayStation 5 or Switch. You couldn't buy Starfield on PlayStation 5 or Switch. So that would mean they did have exclusives. You know what I'm saying?
but
They
on
they
the flip
did have
side,
all that
though,
stuff.
you could always buy Minecraft on like anything under the sun,
Correct?
and subsequent releases for that series, and some of the other games that they have done as well.
Yes.
I think this is kind of more, really, kind of where we are right now. Is this is not your grandma's video game console anymore. Things
Yeah.
are not black and white.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I
Microsoft
think that
is
goes for anyone. That's my main point. That was the point I was trying to get at. Aside from Nintendo, I think that goes for anyone because when you look at the things that are releasing from both sides, both things that they're releasing on PC now and have been releasing over the last few like years are like completely different from what they used to do. I mean, we have fucking Spider-Man on PC. We have God of War on PC. We have this one's a much smaller one, but we had that the zombie game, which name I cannot remember, Days Gone on PC. These
Mhm.
are all games that would have been Sony exclusive. They're not. That was the main thing I was trying to get across there. So wouldn't that
yeah,
mean
but they're still
again?
they are still console exclusive. And I think that's kind of where Microsoft or not Microsoft, Sony really draws their line. You know,
Mhm.
they're okay supporting PC. PC is kind of a no man's land in a lot of
Absolutely.
ways.
Yeah, a
Um,
PC is an open platform. That's what it's designed as. It's not closed off, it's open to anyone. Literally, Nintendo could start porting their games tomorrow. They won't, but they could, and they'd be openly accepted. It wouldn't be anyone on PC being like, ugh, fucking Nintendo, what the fuck? No one would do that.
yeah,
Literally no one would do that.
hmm
But
yeah.
you'll
So
see that kind of shit when it comes to Microsoft putting their stuff on other
yeah,
platforms.
so yeah, so that kind of thing's fine. And also, I guess, kind of just to kind of make a point because I'm surprised you didn't mention this when you were talking about
Yeah,
Sony.
go for it.
But they do publish the show on the other platforms.
They do. You're right.
So that one is not just PC or PlayStation. It's on Xbox and Switch
That's
as well.
actually not on PC, which is funny too.
Oh, sorry. It's on Xbox and Switch as well. So
Yeah,
yeah. So I mean, they do obviously make things for other systems. So that's a
very
thing.
true.
So kind of the I think the big question here, and so what we
Oh, and
already
we have
know.
Helldivers too. Will be released day and date on PC and PS5. Sorry, wanted to go ahead and throw that one out there as well.
Okay. Um, but anyways, yeah. So I mean, kind of what we know in terms of news this week is there's been kind of an overflow of rumors that Microsoft is going to start openly publishing their games on other platforms.
Yeah,
Stuff that they previously would notoriously hold close to their chest.
yes, such as
Even
Starfield and that sort of thing.
uh, rumors are, you know, Starfield's the obvious one,
Yeah,
but they
Sea of
also
Thieves. Sea of Thieves is one of them, I believe, as well.
Yep, Sea of Thieves we talked about a couple weeks ago. Hi-Fi Rush is another one. But the rumors are also pointing towards Gears being maybe up for possible porting,
Yep.
Halo being up for possible porting. Like
See, now
everything apparently is
that
on the
right there,
table.
that is with that all being on the table, that does 100% make them a third party. Like not just console exclusive, that's just you're going third party. Like
Yeah,
at the end of the day.
if they're not holding anything back for themselves,
Yeah.
then that's open third party at that point. But
Yeah.
I mean, really, the thing is, we don't know exactly to what degree this is. We
Yeah.
don't know what's going on. Phil Spencer has said that next week they're going to make an announcement with like actual clarification. So,
Which
uh,
they really honestly need to do at this point. That's not something they need to beat around the bush about. They need to be like, yep, this is what's actually going on. Because there's so many
yeah,
rumors flying about right now that people are like there are people, and I think this is the dumbest shit ever, but there are people that are literally just like going and rushing to sell their Xboxes and stuff right now after these rumors came out. It's
yeah.
fucking wild. And I always would think like, okay, well, did you think you were gonna have exclusives, period? Because you've like had none this generation, basically. So like what the fuck is what's going on here? I mean,
I
the
mean,
console will probably still exist. It just won't be their main focus. Their main focus will be just selling games. And then if that is the case, right? If their main focus becomes to just sell games, then would that be better for them? Like, doesn't matter where they're selling the games. Would that make them focus more on releasing better products? And that's a question I have as well.
and that one we won't know. We won't know that
We
answer.
won't. But I would say,
Um,
like, hypothetically speaking, do you think that would make them focus more on that? Because like when it comes to quality of products, when something gets released on a Sony platform, or Nintendo, obviously, it gets massively scrutinized if it is not up to snuff. When it happens to Microsoft, people are just like, yeah, that's a Microsoft problem. That's just how it is. But if they were like to release something like, for instance, Starfield, and it's just not up to snuff, and they put that on PlayStation, you're gonna have a lot more people be like, "Well, shit, man, it wasn't just an Xbox thing; it was just the game that was the problem." So it makes me wonder if they'll at least try harder with the games they're making, because I don't give a fuck where I'm playing the games as long as they're good. That's at the end of the day, that's how I feel.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do too. And I think kind of honestly, I think that this is not. I feel like whatever we're seeing is just very reactionary.
Hmm.
I
Oh
I
yeah,
I,
definitely.
I think that there is someone at Microsoft
Hmm.
that just saw like the bill for selling Activision and was like or buying Activision. They had to pay for Activision, and
Yeah,
they just looked at that price tag and were like, "The fuck did we do?"
yeah.
Um, because they're looking at that. There's a couple things. One of the
I mean,
things they
also
pointed out.
Activision's so bad right now. Like they're not making good quality products, and neither is Blizzard. Like I didn't talk about Diablo 4 last year because after the first week of Diablo 4, I realized that game was an absolute fucking shit show. And and it's the same way everyone realized Call of Duty in the first week was dog shit. So I don't know. I don't know why they made that purchase per se. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Um,
Um,
it
I know
did.
it's got a lot of big titles under the under the blanket of Activision and under the blanket of Blizzard, but like thinking about it now, aside from just throwing the things on Game Pass, a lot of the people that made those games are gone. They're not even with that company anymore. It's a shell of its former self when you look at it, and it's like, okay, well, what are we doing here? And I think that's kind of what the whoever is in charge right now realized. They were like, oh shit, we've made a horrible mistake. We need to get costs back recouped any way we possibly can. Sell like put our games on everything. And I think that's kind of what may have happened, to be honest.
Well, bits and pieces. At least, from kind of what we know and what we're able to piece together. So
Hmm.
obviously, you have the big shell shock price tag of Activision. We know
Hmm.
that's definitely likely a factor here. Um, so we got that kind of thing. Apparently, they were also really, subsequently spooked at how poorly this console sold during the
Yeah.
holidays. They're like, we had consoles available for 350 and they weren't moving. So I'm sure that was also scary for them.
Hmm.
So, but they're also kind of in this weird spot right now. I honestly, kind of my thought right now is, everyone's running to the doom and gloom scenario of Microsoft just going full on third party. I think it's probably going to be more of like a. I don't think they're going to do a full transition yet. Um,
No, it's gonna be gradual.
I think. Well, I don't even think they're committed to a full transition yet. I think this. I think what they're going to do
Hmm.
is. I think we are going to see stuff like Starfield, Sea of Thieves,
Hmm.
Hi-Fi Rush. Either kind of those more less exciting titles.
Hmm.
I
Sea of
think we
Thieves is
will.
excellent. I'll just say that right now. Sea of Thieves is
It
an
is
excellent game.
excellent. It's gotten great. Users seem to like it, but it's not like hey, go out and buy your system for this kind of game.
Yeah,
It's
100%.
also been around for a
A
long time at this
while.
point too.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's been around long enough that it has kind of had the No Man's Sky effect where it went from being absolute dog shit to actually a really good game.
yeah, it's had a lot of time to put. I don't think Rare's even put out anything substantial in that time that they've been working on it.
No,
Anyways,
they've constantly only been working on Sea of Thieves.
yeah. So I think basically though you're going to see these kind of more either your good indie titles or you're going to see kind of like their maybe Microsoft's higher production titles like
Hmm.
Starfield. I think you're going to see those make ports over. There's even comments. It makes sense. Bethesda really wanted to continue working on multi-platform, so a nice easy kind of thing for them to do. Whatever. I think that through the rest of this generation, we'll see Microsoft kind of trickle out some more of these releases. Maybe some more Activision stuff that maybe had gotten, held on because of the purchase. And I think you're going to see them do a bit more multi-platform experiencing. or experimenting over like the next year or two.
Hmm.
I think that's what they're going to do because they just spent all this money on Activision. They've probably not kind of like not obviously maxed out the total amount of Xbox sales that they are, but they're obviously not getting the momentum that they are. They're not really going to hit anything that's going to cause a deep um, level of purchasing support from their user base at this point. Like the Xbox, is as weird as it sounds to say, the Xbox Series, whatever. Um, I think they realize the writing's on the wall for this generation.
Hmm.
They're just going to ride out the rest of this generation with what they have, and they're going to try to make back as much money as they can on this generation as they can. And I think they realize that keeping everything in a locked garden for the rest of this generation is not gonna do them any favors
Hmm.
immediately. I think what you'll see, I think they'll do that. I think next generation, when that comes around, that's when they're gonna start throwing everything into exclusivity for a while. They'll test those waters again, see how well they do with a new system launch, with new exclusives, and go. If that does well, then they will keep everything locked up like you would expect. If
Hmm.
it does not do well, you will see them turn around and multi-platform everything after like 6 months. And if that still doesn't do well, then you'll just see the system just fold completely.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the progression that we'll see things. I don't think that I would if Phil Spencer comes out next week and just straight up is like Xbox platform is dead, I would be legitimately shocked. I think that's what some people are expecting him to do, but that man would be the dumbest man alive, and Don Matrix still exists. So, um, yeah, I don't see them going full on third party. I see them experimenting a little bit with what's left of this generation to see if they could recoup some cost that they've spent on shilling out all these studios.
Hmm.
But yeah, I still think that from a business perspective, they would be absolutely insane to just be like, we are fully committed to bringing everything third party right now. Um,
Yeah, I don't think that's the play.
yeah, and it's not. And um, yeah, so it'll just be interesting to see kind of where this ends up playing out. We talked about it. I don't remember, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I mean, there's a lot of hurdles for them to bring Game Pass to other systems. I don't think it's necessarily
Although that
viable
is
right
true.
now,
Although
but
that
that
is true, right?
mhm,
The hurdles is true. Uh, Here's my other question. I know I mentioned this before, but
yeah,
bringing these games over to other systems, is this a way of getting their foot in the door? Kind of like a Trojan horse, so to speak.
for like Game Pass.
Yes.
I mean, it could be. I mean, you always think about, uh, you think about stuff like kind of what Nintendo was thinking with, branching out into um, mobile games. They're
Yeah.
like, well, we're not going to release full titles there, but we'll give them kind of uniquely made kind of mobile versions
Yeah.
so that, maybe they'll like it. Maybe they'll be enticed to come back.
And they have the
And
smaller third party games at first, and then we start bringing over some more big hitters, like Halo and that sort of thing,
yeah,
and
and you
Gears of
could see how
War.
that ends up going. Maybe they try out
I
something and
mean, uh, PlayStation does have a massive lack of first person shooters. Maybe they need a little help.
yeah. And it could be, and maybe that's something that we'll see from that there. Um, because I especially find it hard to believe that Microsoft fought tooth and nail for this Activision deal just to
Yeah.
kind of be like,
Yeah, we're done.
we're just gonna put it on
Yeah,
PlayStation
that's
anyways.
the thing that makes zero sense. Like something else more nefarious is going on here. We don't know what it is, but I feel like something else a little bit more nefarious is going on here.
I don't think nefarious is the right word. Um, just kind of just everything's. I think just everything's just not clear right now. I don't think Microsoft necessarily has like ill intentions. Um, but like I said, I think it's just kind of more like, you know, despite what the rumors say, it's not. You know, it might look like a duck, it might sound like a duck, but I don't necessarily think. I'm not sure we're looking at a duck yet.
Yeah, I mean, it might quack like one.
Yeah, it could quack like one, but maybe it's just a goose. I don't
Oh yeah,
know.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but so it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, we'll have more to talk about with this. Either next week or the week after, I guess, depending on when whatever Microsoft's unveiling their stuff. I don't think they've dated it yet. But yeah, I would be surprised if this is a Microsoft's going fully third party announcement. The rumors also say, kind of just to give that a little bit more credence, that Microsoft's next generation platform um, plans have not changed. Like they are still planning on releasing a console after Xbox Series X and S. Like there is
Hmm.
that pipeline has not changed. It's just kind of like I said. My thought is it's. I think that they're gonna try and get some money back, and maybe some, and even too, another thing that's kind of important too, some goodwill. You get some goodwill, while you can. So before this new gen comes out, and then be like, oh hey, remember that Starfield game you really enjoyed on PlayStation 5? Well, guess what? Starfield 2 is an Xbox dumb name exclusive. So yeah, there you go. Because that next console is just gonna have the absolute dumbest name.
Oh yeah.
So uh so yeah, I mean I think what do you think? Is that kind of what you're thinking too? It's kind of more like a middle ground
I
or you just don't know?
I'm not sure, and I don't think they have the balls enough to be like, oh, it's an exclusive. However, I do think they could do what Sony has done, which is it's an exclusive for a certain amount of time to try to get people to buy into the thing for that certain amount of time. Like for instance, Final Fantasy Rebirth. It is exclusive on PS5 for 3 months. That's not a
Mm-hmm.
whole lot of time.
No.
But in the age of FOMO, if you're missing out, that's a lot of time. And that's a really easy amount of time to sell people on buying your console just to play that game in.
Yeah.
So possibly something like that, but I don't see it working for. I don't see it really working for Microsoft as well as it has for Sony because Sony's been doing it for so long that it does work and that it's accepted. I don't think that they'd be able to do that unless they had something big. Like they'd need a huge hitter to do something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean it makes more sense. I mean, like you think about it, something like Starfield, not necessarily a big hitter, but
Hmm.
they're not
I mean, they
making it.
hyped it up to be, and it just wasn't. Like that's all it was at the end of the day.
Yeah, and obviously, I think it's for them like that, kind of where they are right now, that spot that they're stuck in. They are a very solid third place
Hmm.
in this generation right now. Like not even room for debate. So for them, they've
I
already.
would go as far to say, like, quite literally, if some new contender came swinging out the front door, Microsoft could be knocked into fourth that quickly.
No, I don't. I think I think they're not that poor standing, but um, I mean, because you got to think about it. Like if someone, you'd really have to have like a. I mean, this is a huge detour, and I don't really want to go down to it. So maybe make a
Hmm.
mental note for another conversation. When we're looking for a topic,
Hmm.
but you think about like just the mental logistics and hurdles that they have to go through to get a console started and to have kind of like an actual like decent showing of games that are enticing enough for people to come over. Like it's nearly impossible. i
Yeah.
I would be hard unless Nintendo just. I think the closest thing you could have to that would Nintendo just being like, "Hey, we're gonna make another pillar that's a direct competitor to the PlayStation and the Xbox, and it's just gonna fight with it on power." And here we have some other titles. Because the problem is the publishers are all snatched up between the three, big things. You don't have like who are you gonna get for exclusives right now? Ubisoft be like, oh yeah, the next Assassin's Creed is exclusive to the. I can't even make up a game console. The Pepsi Max, uh, and that's the only place you can play the new Assassin's Creed. Like, hey, I don't even think that's enough draw to even do anything. Like you don't have your Call of Duties. You don't have access to kind of like a lot of the big video game IPs because they're all owned by someone. So it's really
Yeah,
like
I
what.
think the best thing to do is to find new people. to find new things. I mean, like, let's take for example, Microsoft struck gold having Pal World on Game Pass. Like they did. Like,
Hmm.
is if it was the updated version and if it actually had crossplay right now, that would legitimately be an option. But it seems like for everything that Microsoft has done right, they do 27 things incorrectly. But my main point of this is these smaller indie companies, if they apply themselves and they do something that it not necessarily hasn't been done before, but something that people want, that there is a market for, that could sell like fucking hotcakes. You just got to find people that are doing stuff like that. And I guarantee you there's plenty of people out there, but no one's seeing them because there's a billion fucking indie titles out there. So they get lost in the mix of all these, oh, look, it's another game that's got 2D art style and da 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 da. You know what I mean? But like,
Yeah.
you need to rely on indies. You need to rely on that sort of thing.
But that's the
You
thing. But
need
you
to
can't.
look
But they
into
can't
those
be.
people.
Indies are great for filling out like
Dude,
software, but
Palworld
they're
is the best-selling thing on Steam right now, ever released.
yeah.
That is insane. You
Hmm.
need to find people making more products like that. Something that there is a market for, but it isn't being tapped into. If you can find that sort of thing, that's how you make your money. You have to do the research though. It can't just be something people fucking they're just like, whatever, fuck it. Here's Activision, here's Ubisoft. No, you need to go and find something that's different,
Hmm.
but there is a market for. If you can do that, that is how you build a brand. That is how you make your money. That is
Yeah.
how you become the top player.
Yeah.
Easily.
But on a flip side, if you were like, "Hey, new $400 console, and it's got Pal World,"
Okay, I think you're misunderstanding me a little bit. I'm saying that it's not, oh, we're selling a new $400 console. I'm saying that you start your brand with smaller titles. I'm not saying you go directly into um like, oh, we're selling a $400 console. Although that would sell because if you look at things like Ambernick or you look at stuff like the Amico, there was something that they were trying to bring back from the dead, and it was like a $300 console, and it still sold fucking gangbusters because people wanted that thing, but then they never actually came forward and did the thing that they said they were going to do, and it was all bullshit. But there was again a market there for that thing. If you do that thing, and that thing is done, then people pay for that thing. All you gotta do is sell the product that people want. Find what people want right now and make your own version of it. It's simple. It's really so easy, but no
you make it
one's.
sound so easy.
It is so easy, but no
But
one's willing
it's
to
not.
do it
It's not
because
that
it's so
easy. That's the
different.
problem. Well, no, because the big. I think it sounds really easy on paper when you say it like that. You make it sound so much easier than I think the actual reality is. Because the thing is, it's not like you just like, hey man, Power World's popular right now. Let me just pop one of those out next week, and then we got it here. Problem is, games take like years to make, so it's like you're
You're
not
right. We're
predicting
not
what's going to
looking.
be.
We're not. You don't predict. That's the thing. I'm not saying predict. I'm not saying. I'm
But
saying
you
look
have
at
to
what
predict.
people. No, you look at what people want right now, and then
Yeah.
you find people that are making that thing but aren't having that thing highlighted because they're just random people. Like for instance, the people that made Power World, they literally got some dude from a fucking convenience store to work on the gun elements of the entire game and come up with that idea and that sort of thing. And that's the way they made the game. They worked on it as they were creating it for the first time. They weren't developers that had ever developed things before. They learned as they were making the game over time. They had people that did a thing, but they weren't known. They weren't in the industry. They were just people that wanted to do a thing, and that's what happened. You don't look towards people that are already in the industry. You look towards people that want to be in the industry as a way of filling out your um your like your standing of
Your
titles
lineup
that would
or
be on
whatever.
your yeah, you
Yeah.
know what I'm trying to say. You
Yeah.
don't look at people that are already established because you know what you're getting with the people that are already established. If you look at people that aren't already established that have been working on things and you look on at their portfolio and what they've been working on, that's how you find things like your Power Worlds, things like your fucking big games that made a splash, like Super Meat Boy or Braid, or these sort of things that, like, when you think of indie titles, you're like, that's a thing that's been there since the beginning. But you never would have known if they didn't have their game and a chance to put their game out there. Microsoft did a really good job in the past of highlighting indie titles with like Summer of Games, that sort of thing that they did during the Xbox 360, and
Hmm.
that pushed forward a whole generation of new titles and things that now are beloved by people even today. And we wouldn't have gotten things like oh Jesus Christ, like Hades, for instance. Supergiant Games wouldn't exist and Hades wouldn't exist if it wasn't for them bringing them in way back when, and Sony and other people bringing people in from way back when. Hotline Miami wouldn't exist. Those kind of games. We wouldn't have games like Vampire Survivors, and that wouldn't have started a whole fucking new genre if it wasn't for the fact that someone looked and they were able to break through the mold. But if you had a company already that were specifically looking for things that could be interesting, could be different from everything else that's on the market currently, and has a possibility of becoming something like that, you may already be able to have a good like starting point with your first system. Obviously, you don't make it a huge $400-$500 system. You get people in there on a ground floor. You make something small like a handheld. You make something small like maybe like a smaller like 1080p console or whatever. You're not going straight for 4K, but you're going for the titles that people wouldn't see anywhere else. You find a way to implement those into your product and to like advertise its uniqueness, because what we don't have right now in the industry is a specific console that is highlighting unique different experiences. Those different experiences just get brought in from this, that, and the other. And then they eventually get released on something like a Switch, like with Vampire Survivors, or like with, I don't know, the Stanley Parable or something like that. Those titles are great titles. Those titles were found on PC initially. If you had a console or a brand that's entire purpose was to give those people a chance to shine at a much lower entry price, you could sell something that's dedicated to that sort of thing. You could also give people a chance to get into the industry, and then those things would eventually be ported to the other consoles that exist as well. But people would be like, oh, this isn't that expensive and I have all these options here on this brand, maybe I'll give it a go. That sort of thing. I mean, you look at Kickstarter, people kickstart the dumbest shit every single day because there's a market for it. You just have to find something and build it around the general market that you're trying to find. And if you were able to do that, then I do think that you'd have a chance to be able to come into the market as a generally new player if you already had your money and your funding to begin with. So, for instance, the Pepsi Max console, as you said, if the entire purpose of that console was to be unique and they went about it the way I'm explaining right now, I do think someone could do something like that. Don't think it would be that hard, honestly. I just don't think anyone's willing to take that chance because it's not the thing that's guaranteed to work. But if it did work, I think it would work really fucking well.
It's way too fucking risky. That was my takeaway from everything you said. I'm sitting here and I'm like, if I was an investor, would this be? Because all I would come back to in my head was like, but how are you going to differentiate it from the Steam Deck? How are you going to differentiate it from the Steam Deck? How are you going to differentiate it from the Steam Deck?
The
Like,
Steam Deck is a PC, or a Linux PC, but a PC nonetheless.
no, it is, but it has access to all the indie games. And if you are a you know let's say I decided to make a game and I was like, okay, I have limited funds,
Yeah,
and
I do have a way to differentiate it from the Steam Deck. I
okay,
do actually,
but let
because
me finish
there
my
is.
let me
All right, go
finish
ahead. Yeah,
my what
sorry,
I'm
sorry,
saying.
sorry, sorry. Go
Yeah.
for it. Go for it.
But so if I have limited funds, and let's say Pepsi comes up to me and they're like, okay,
I like that
uh,
we're sticking with the Pepsi theme.
yeah, I have an empty Pepsi bottle next to me, so that's where it came from. But yeah, so Pepsi comes up to me and is like, "Hey, Mike, we're gonna make a brand new console, and you know, we think that you'd be a great fit for it with this really cool game that you're making, and it's so awesome, and we think that it could really drive, this new console. We're interested in buying it or funding it or whatever." So you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. But on the flip side, so you look at that and be like, okay, well, I could sell them. I could make some immediate cash. Maybe I need it. Maybe I don't. It depends on the team size and what I'm doing. Obviously, there's some real world kind of considerations to take there. But obviously, the trade off is you get some immediate money right away, but odds are, you're gonna lose
Mm-hmm.
potential long-term profits, because you're going to get that funding. So obviously, Pepsi's going to be publisher now. You're not going to probably get as much of that recoup back as you would have had you decided to just self-publish on Steam. And obviously, if you're selling it on an indie platform like PC,
Mm-hmm.
lots more availability there. You make it on your own with your own funding. You're able to put it out. You don't have any profit that comes back goes directly to you instead of losing a larger share of that to the publisher. On top of if you're doing Steam, obviously you're gonna some money's gonna go to Steam, some of that percentage, but not as much as say if it was a console and you were like in a publishing deal.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have potential to get more money back. And also, too, if you're self-publishing, then if it becomes really popular in Steam, maybe you do release it on Xbox and PlayStation and the Switch. Down the road, you have those available. But if you get locked into the Pepsi Max console,
Oh,
that's kind of all it
that's
is.
the thing. We talked about it before. It's exclusive for a certain amount of time, just like we were talking about with Xbox. It's the FOMO that sells it. I mean, people were able to sell it Ouya, and Ouya was fucking dog shit.
Yeah, but think about that one indie game that was trapped on there for years.
That's true. Maybe that's the reason they were able to sell it Ouya.
Yeah, and but it's kind of that same thing. It's like everyone was like, "Oh, it's a great game." I don't even remember what the game's called anymore. Um,
A
but
tower something.
Tower something,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and it was a very promising indie game. But you think about it, like any momentum that it had was A, completely derailed by the Ouya, and B, once they could sell it on their own, once the Ouya was like defunct, who cared at that point? It's old. That's the unfortunate thing. Even if a game is fun and new and exciting, if it's old, like it just doesn't gather as much attention. But anyways, so what was your counter thought?
My counter thought was basically just there's a market, and if you could find what you need in that market and sell it, I do think it would be possible. And I think if you did go the exclusive for a certain amount of time, not for years and years and years and years and years, like with Tower Fight, maybe I don't remember what it
No,
was, but
not
anyway,
Tower Fight. Tower
Tower
something.
Tower something. I have it on
Tower
Steam.
Defense?
No, Tower. I own this game. What is this fucking game
Towerfall.
called? Towerfall. Yeah. Okay. With Towerfall. Not something that lasts fucking decades, basically. But 6 months, 8 months, that sort of thing. And then they have the rights to it. They get the money for the initial. It's going to be on our console.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 8 months, they have the chance of getting the money for having it on other consoles. And since PC is an open platform, there's still the option of PC. And then I talked about Steam Deck, which you were saying that would be what it would be competing against. And I don't think that's true. Because see, the thing about Steam Deck is when you play a game on Steam Deck, it is mostly just you can play the game. But you still do need to tinker with a bit of settings from time to time. If you had a platform that was pretty much closed off, it is already optimized to work with that platform, and you don't need to tinker with the settings, that would be much more um what's the word I'm looking for?
User friendly.
Enticing to console players than the Steam Deck is. Because a lot of people that play console, they just want to sit down, plug something into their TV, and play it. Now, granted, for the most part, you can do that with the Steam Deck, but there's still elements where, because it's a Linux interface, there might be an issue here or there that you need to solve, or there might be a problem with some controls that you need to solve yourself, and you need to be open to looking into that problem and how to fix it. But some people just don't want to deal with that shit, and they just won't play the game that won't work if that is the case on Steam Deck. And that has happened. Some people will just wait until that game has gotten a green check mark, which means if I hit play on this game, I can just start playing it. And that is like the double-edged sword with the Steam Deck. Um, Although it is trying to be like a handheld that is just very open to people, you have the option of still being able to play games that don't have that check mark. And some people would rather just not even see those games exist and would rather be able to play on a platform where games are optimized specifically for that platform. And I do think that, for instance, our Pepsi Max that we're talking about here could do something like that, where these games are unique, they're optimized for our platform. Our platform's like $200 for the console, or $150 even for the console. And then the games are much cheaper, like 20, 15, $30 max, basically. And
Pepsi
they're
Max.
unique. Exactly. They're unique and different from what you'd get on other places, but they're all in one place instead of having to trudge through the slop that you have to do on the eShop, or the slop that you have to do on the PlayStation Store, or the garbage you have to deal with on Xbox. We've curated these. These are things that we find interesting and we actually see are playable games that are good, and here they are. In one place, it's your one destination for all this sort of stuff. And then later on down the line, they get released somewhere else. And that means the developers get to make double money instead of just being like, yeah, and they could still sell it on PC because PC is an open platform. It's not the same thing as the Pepsi Max, you know? It's
Oh, is
something
Pepsi
different.
Max going to let him put it on PC?
Yeah, you have to. You have to, because even consoles right now, anything that's releasing on consoles is still releasing on PC.
Well, no, I'm saying, but right day and date is what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's just silly. There'd be no reason. PC is an open platform. PC has a different customer base than consoles do. And this is finding an in between where it's like that different customer base that doesn't want to deal with all the bullshit of tinkering with this, that, and the other, but they still want those interesting experiences. That's the Pepsi Max.
Hmm. I think it's maybe theoretically possible, but I
I'm
think
This is all hypotheticals. This is all
it's
me
so
just
optimistic.
it's not necessarily optimistic as it is like realistic if you think about it.
Well, it's realistic in some ways, but the problem is it's also optimistic in other ways. Um, because I think like if you were on paper and you were like, yeah, this and this is all gonna happen. Yeah, I mean that maybe you could open some doors and make some wiggle rooms there. It's a bit more there, but on the flip side though, you're talking $200 console, maybe $200 max. I think is what you said.
Hmm.
Um, obviously there's going to be hardware limitations there. How much are you going to squeeze developers out because of the hardware limitations?
See,
Um,
that's also an interesting thing. I've
yeah,
been able to complete create like PCs and stuff like under $200 that can do better than like the Nintendo Switch.
no,
I
you
do feel like
can.
there are really simple options to make a pretty decently powerful console for a cheap amount. And I'm not a business, so to speak. So I don't have the options of buying things wholesale from different companies such as like Intel or AMD or what have you. But even I've been able to create things on a small budget. So if you were a company and you were able to buy things wholesale to create your platform, I do think it'd be doable even more so if I can already do it by just being one individual. So
But you got to remember though, one individual's different. Like you can buy the parts for all of stuff, anything, cheaper than the whole a lot of times. The problem is it's the assembly and the manufacturing. the
Yeah, I guess the
marketing,
manufacturing call. Yes,
the then you have to have someone make a UI. You got all that stuff that's got to go
that's
into
fair.
it. So like I said, it's optimistic, but
Yeah,
it's not necessarily unrealistic. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's
yeah, I guess I'm
optimistic. Like you have to
looking
have
at
a
it.
lot of stuff go like perfect. Um,
You're right. You're right. But I do think, hypothetically speaking, that it would be possible. And I think that's what we were
it's a
trying to get.
better sell than the Ouya.
Dude, I could have sold people the Ouya easily. Uh,
Because I mean,
yeah.
that's kind of, I mean, really what you're describing. Honestly, I always kind of thought that was the vibe that they were going for. They just
But
went,
they didn't. That's
yeah,
not what they went with the
yeah. They
Ouya.
went,
And that was
they went
the
off the rails. They didn't
yeah.
have much direction. But I think one of the big things, though, and it's kind of, it comes back to what we were talking about, like, just software wise. Not even talking about like the user enticing to buy, but the software side of things. Um, it's would that platform be able to keep drawing in developers? I feel like it's easier to get people to sign on for launch window because it's exciting. You're going to have a lot of people buying it initially.
Mhm.
And if the platform does well, that can go into long-term sales. But if it just kind of has a soft launch, then you kind of see it just lemmings right off a cliff. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think the whole thing is rather interesting just to think about because you gotta admit, right? At least it is something that does sound enticing when you
Yeah.
when you think of it the way I was just presenting it to you. Like
Hmm.
I would rather play many interesting different games on one platform that already is optimized for that platform specifically than dig through a bunch of bullshit, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
And being able to play those interesting and different titles is very enticing. Like I see so many games and things from me digging through the bullshit and separating it to show you guys that just aren't being touched. They aren't being shown to people. They aren't being put on platforms, and it's a damn shame. I
Hmm.
because some of them are very well made, but no one's ever going to play them because of the fact that they're not on those big platforms or they're not in one specific place. And if they are on those platforms, you still have to dig through so much garbage to get to them.
Yeah, and that's a problem I think all of them kind of deal with their
And the only way they're able
storefronts.
to highlight is by putting them in like a Nintendo Direct or a PlayStation State of Play or something
Yeah,
like that.
and that's really the best thing that they've been able to kind of weasel together so far because
Hmm.
they've kind of found that the storefronts, all of them, there's
Are
not
bad.
really any.
They're
Yeah,
very bad.
they're bad, and they've not found any kind of way to make them more user friendly or more wieldy. It's a problem you see on everything from
Hmm.
smartphones to it's not limited to just
Yeah, I mean it's an
game
issue with
consoles.
Steam also. Like
Yeah. Mhm.
Steam's definitely overinflated. I'm not saying it's not a problem with PC. It's definitely a problem with PC. But since PC is an open platform, it's a lot easier to just look up the specific kind of genre or like look
Mhm.
around and find things. And also, I feel like the people that play games on PC are more willing to dig through trash to find something good. So,
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. So I don't know. Interesting thought experiment. So but yeah, so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with, you know, bringing things around with Microsoft and this kind of things. You know, really, Microsoft has kind of been the almost 30-year thought experiment on this.
yeah,
Um,
Microsoft is something that I've never really known what they were doing, and it's always kind of been that way.
yeah, it
Like,
seems like every generation or so they kind of are like, well, that didn't work. Let's just start over from scratch again.
we, we
Like
we
they
say
don't.
every generation, but like 360 and original Xbox kind of had it down. They knew what they were doing. They were
Original
focusing on
Xbox.
Xbox Live, and they were focusing on making it a online service that they could sell to people to play on consoles, and it worked really, really well.
I would
Uh,
say so that I would say definitely for Xbox 360. I feel like with
the
original
original did
Xbox,
as well because of Halo 2.
Well, it
Halo
did
2,
for that, but
absolutely.
I think just as a whole for that platform, they were
Hmm.
still kind of open to exploring kind of whichever direction things went, and they really just kind of they
Yeah,
were
because it
like,
was like the
hey, that worked
Dreamcast
really
too.
well.
A lot of
Yeah,
Dreamcast games that didn't get released on Dreamcast got dumped on Xbox.
yeah,
So like that's
it,
where we saw Shenmue 2, and that's where we saw one of my favorite games of all time, Jet Set Radio Future.
yeah.
So yeah,
And then when Halo 2 did really well, they're like, okay, now we know which direction we want to do, and they really
yeah.
kind of settle in with that for 360, and that
And then 360 was kind of like the Call of Duty machine, more or less.
yeah, they knew their spot, they knew their
Yeah.
niche, they knew what they were looking for, and they really had
Gray
like
and
a good grasp
brown,
on
the
things.
console. That's what the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 were. The gray and brown consoles. I do feel like
um,
PlayStation 3 much less because you had things like Uncharted, which was very colorful and stuff like that. But then, and you had like the Katamaris that were still releasing. But 360 was basically modern military shooters, the console.
yes. Um, yeah. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe just do what you did on Xbox 360 again.
Yeah.
Like, do
Just
that.
go back. Yeah. Go back to what you were doing. Yeah. You honestly have all the companies to do it now. So
They
you can.
actually do. They literally have every company to just do the same thing over again.
No, honestly, if Microsoft really wants to make the most bang for their buck, I think that the best thing for them to do is, port over the stuff that you don't think is going to make too much, like,
I was I was just thinking, Microsoft, the best way you can sell it is by selling an Xbox 360 again. That means release all the Call of Duties that we had, let everyone say all the slurs that they want, talk about my mother as badly as they want, and then you just sell your console off of that.
yeah, exactly.
And you know what? Awful as it is, there's a demographic for
It'll be like your mama sucks box,
it.
and it'll be like sucks like XUX and then dash box. So I think that's how they'll do it. No, but yeah, no, I think honestly, if I was in Microsoft, my plan would be kind of, I guess, what I had spelled out. The rest of this generation, you know which titles you have in your library that are not going to, you can port over and get some goodwill without,
Yeah.
risking too much to your user base. Port over Starfield. Who gives a fuck? The game sucks. Nobody's gonna miss it, and you get a chance to get a little extra money. Hi-Fi
Yeah.
Rush, excellent game. Really show off your quality games that you have on the
Hi-Fi Rush
system.
is fantastic.
Yeah, same thing
Yeah.
with Sea of Thieves. Show it off. Let people have a good time with it.
Yep.
And then in the meantime, what you do, you already squandered this generation, so don't even fucking bother releasing other major titles right now. Just polish those turds as nice as you can. Turn them into real nice games.
I mean, we got
Don't
Hellblade
settle
2
for
coming out this year. Let's be fair. That
yeah.
game looks excellent. We got
Which game? Oh,
Hellblade
no,
2.
no.
Hellblade 2.
Yeah, but that's not like a system seller. Like it's a great game. It's going to be excellent, but
I don't
it's
think
not a
anything is a system seller for Xbox. I don't think anything you could release on Xbox is a system seller.
Halo, Gears, maybe Forza.
Forza is excellent, but I
No, it
always
is
play
excellent.
Forza on
The
PC.
debatable
Except for
part is
last
whether or
one.
not
Well,
it's a system
last
seller.
Forza was fucking
Yeah.
garbage. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, so just really kind of like, just kind of like, listen, just kind of work on that. In the meanwhile, which games you have in your pipeline that are going to be like potential system sellers. You get them like polished. You get them so like they're getting review scores like, preliminary review scores of like 11 out of 10. Yeah, and you gear them all up for whatever your next console is, and you give yourself a fucking sweet ass
Can we
launch
talk
window.
about one other hypothetical that I think would be really funny?
Sure.
We prove the Xbox tax exists by having Starfield come out on PS5 and it gets a 9s out of 10s.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if it reviewed better on PlayStation than it did on Xbox.
It's just the same game, but they review it better on PlayStation because it's a PlayStation game now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That would be like, all right, you guys aren't even trying to hide it now. This is the exact same fucking game that you guys shit on for months, and now you're like, hey, good game. Really? Yeah, I'm playing it on a different box, so now it's a good game. You know what they need to do? Just release the PlayStation 6 as Microsoft without telling anyone. They buy it, and then eventually you just reveal, haha, it was all a ruse. This was Microsoft. You get as many good reviews for any shit you pump out as humanly possible. Because it's a Sony branded console, you know, and then then you run away with the money.
Also, better idea than probably what they're actually going to do, but we'll see next week. So. Anyways, is there anything else to talk about before we wrap up?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Well, that said, thank you everyone for listening to us tonight. Don't forget to find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Amazon, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We also have the website game-crunch.com. You can check out all of our old episodes there. If you want to reach out to us, you can send us an email at gamecrunchcast@gmail.com. Brandon.
Hello.
Final thoughts?
No, I got none.
Okay. Well, that said, my name is Mike Anastasia. You can find me online. I'm Clash Penguin on online or on your favorite gaming console. And until next week, game on.
Game on.
Of this game Pentiment before?
Yep.
I've never heard of it. Nothing. That's it. That's all. I've never heard of it before. That's all.
I see.
Kind of relevant considering it was published by Xbox and...
yeah, now Xbox is just a third-party developer.
Yeah. I don't feel like I've even remotely ever even heard of this game before.
I have. It was in one of their Xbox things that they did, and then I believe it's by Obsidian?
Correct.
Yeah, that's the only reason I knew about it, because it was an Obsidian game, and Obsidian makes really good games.
Exactly, which is why I'm surprised I had not heard of it before.
It's a very, very niche title, though. Like, it's
very well reviewed, though.
Yes, it is. It was one of the titles, right, that did so incredibly well that everyone was like, hey, the year that this game came out, why was this not in like the running for some kind of award? What's the deal with that? Because it was incredibly well reviewed. It was loved by those that played it and liked that sort of game, and then no one talked about it.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I know of it is because one of our former podcast guests is currently playing it on Twitch or on Discord right now.
Nice.
So I can see it's like, oh, they're playing this game, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Nope, never heard of it before. And this trailer, I don't feel like I've ever seen this before.
Yeah, they showed it in, like, it was lost in the sauce, basically.
Well, looks like a cool game. Maybe I'll
Does look
use
like a
Game
cool game.
Pass to play it. I don't
know. I've been using Game Pass to play things.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's currently a state of play going on right now.
Oh, is it this very second?
Yeah, right now.
Oh. When is it over?
Huh?
When is it over? Is there anything going exciting, or is it just the usual shitty state of play?
This one's entirely dedicated to the new Final Fantasy VII game.
Oh, okay.
It's
so probably not a bad one, but not anything too exciting.
So, actually, I need to boot up my PlayStation 5, because supposedly it leaked that there will be a demo immediately after the state of play.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Because Sony put up a trailer yesterday by mistake, and it said, play the demo now. And everyone's like, wait, what? What are you talking about?
What demo? Oopsies. Please ignore the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
I think it's ending right now, actually. Available on February 29th on 2-disc.
A 2-disc PlayStation 5 game?
Yeah.
The fuck?
Yeah, apparently it's so long that they couldn't fit it on one disc.
Or they're so lazy they couldn't optimize anything.
I mean, I guess that's possible as well.
I'm more inclined to think it's that, but we'll see.
I mean, it's the one thing I'm going to get for my birthday, so...
Yeah, your birthday is, what,
in 2 weeks? Yep. Yeah. Although apparently I'm getting something else, and I don't know what it is, because one of my friends sent me a message that was just a string of numbers, And I
Uh-huh.
was like, "What is this?" And then he just sent the here. I'll show you what he sent. It was actually really funny. Uh, after copy, add to favorites. Okay, so I said, "All right, can you look in general chat?"
Yeah.
I asked him, "What's the string of characters?" And then he just sent this. Wait, how do I post something that's a favorite now?
I
Oh
don't see
yeah, here we
anything
go.
in general.
There it is. He just sent this.
Ah. Mm-hmm.
And then I typed in those numbers, and it's a link to USPS, and there's a package coming for me.
Oh, okay.
And it's not from his location of existence. So my
Okay, so it's
question
like
is,
shipping from somewhere.
yeah, exactly. So what the fuck is this? This is what I asked him. And he's like, I gotta go to bed, bye. And that was the last thing he said. So
Well,
yeah, I guess he's sending me something for my birthday, but I don't know what it is.
could be anything.
Could be.